Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Tell Your Story. I'm Todd Nesloney, your host. I'm an elementary principal in Texas, and each week I seek to bring you different people who have inspired, encouraged, or challenged me in some way and allow them a platform to share some of their story. I am thrilled this week to bring you my special guest, Amanda Threatt. Amanda, why don't you tell everybody a little about who you are?
Hey everyone, good to see you. Glad to be here. My name's Amanda Threatt, and I am an educator and Todd's cousin. And
You ruined the surprise. I wasn't going to say it yet.
well, I had to introduce myself, so that's my claim to fame. Todd's cousin. That's me.
Well, yes, Amanda is my first family member to have on the show. So this is going to be a really special episode for me tonight. I'm thrilled to have you on. And Amanda, is this your first interview on like a podcast or something? This is like your first, right?
Oh yeah, I'm total rookie here. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, we are a family full of educators. And so, Amanda, did you always know that you wanted to be a teacher, or was it something that you just kind of fell into?
So I started tutoring some friends of mine when I was in high school and helping them with their math work. And I would go to their house, help them with homework. And then I was going off to college deciding what I want to do. You have to just pick a major and a career path. So I said, well, I'll either be an accountant or a teacher because that's what my parents do. So I know those jobs. And they said, well, we'll put you in some classes your freshman year. And I started loving education and said, let's go this route, and been teaching this is my 12th year.
Wow. I mean, we've been teaching the same amount of years, and it's so weird to hear you say 12. It
Yeah,
feels
that
so
makes you
long.
old. Yeah.
I know. So you are one of those special people who are a junior high teacher. What do you feel like draws you to that age group?
Well, when I was in seventh grade was the first year that I went to public school because I did private school, kindergarten through sixth grade. And seventh grade, I went to public school and started to know that time of life, you start getting into some girl drama and you have a lot of hormones going crazy. And, it was great because I had you there with me. Not that you're part of the girl drama, but my
Thank
cousin
goodness.
and my best friend was right there by my side. So that was no problem. But you know how it was. It was not always the smoothest of roads. So finally getting out of that and getting into high school was really helpful to just kind of graduate to that age group. But I always felt a tug back toward those age students. So even in high school, you and I worked a lot with the younger students and the junior high kids and ministering to them through church. And so it was just an age group that I was always drawn to. So when I got my certification, I wanted 4th through 8th grade and said, this is where I want to camp out. And ever since, I've had a job in either 7th or 8th grade and loved it. I mean, I have no problem with it. People tell me I'm crazy and, oh, the Lord bless you more and more. But no, I love it.
No, I love 7th and 8th graders on a very limited basis. Like, I can go hang out with them for about an hour, but I'm teaching them and all that drama every day.
Oh, yeah.
I'm in elementary through and through.
No.
What is
No,
something you feel like you've really learned about yourself by being a junior high teacher?
About myself, I have a lot of patience. I
Mhm.
think it takes a lot of patience to deal with a lot of these kids and their issues because they come with so many other things going on. They do not come to my class eager to hear what I have to teach them about solving equations.
Right.
And so it takes a lot of patience to work with them. And I think it's been one thing that I've really learned about myself, that I do possess that quality pretty decently.
Yeah, I think dealing with our siblings and me has probably prepared you really well for the patience aspect.
Exactly. Yeah, you're kind of an impatient guy, but
I don't know what you're talking about. That's not me at all.
right.
But so something unique about you, Amanda, that people may not know when they first get to know you is that you were born with Tourette's, and something you've had to learn to deal with your entire life. So I want to kind of dive into that a little bit. So for people who may not know what Tourette's is, or may only know it by that stereotypical movie definition, give us a broad overview of what Tourette's is.
So Tourette syndrome is a neurological disorder that doesn't have a cure, and really has no medication except other things they can put you on. So there are different symptoms that you would notice in a person that are motor tics or vocal tics. And so the common, like you said, thing that people think of is this is somebody who curses out loud and they can't control it. And in reality, that's probably the smallest population of people with Tourette's have that as one of their tics. And so you'll see people with motor tics, kind of like a nervous twitch almost, that they'll do. And so it was something that we kind of can trace back to maybe about third grade or so that I started doing. But things as blinking my eyes or shaking my head or moving my shoulders around, it's all kind of comes and goes with different times. And the more tired I am or stressed I am, the more things will come out. But it's not something that is a constant struggle every day for me like it was when I was diagnosed in 7th grade.
So who was the first to notice? Did you notice you were doing some of the things, or was it somebody in the family?
It was a cousin on the other side of the family, I think, that was noticing. It was right around, I think, the time that Aladdin came out. Were we in maybe 3rd grade or so then? I don't know. But she noticed that I was blinking my eyes a lot. And so she was like, why are you doing that? Are you a genie going to grant me a wish or something? And so I was just totally like, I have no idea. And so it was something I was doing and I couldn't control it. And
you didn't even realize you were doing it.
No, really didn't even know that I was doing it, but it was happening apparently. And I can notice things that I do now, I notice later because my muscles will be sore or tired or tense. And so I can tell.
Even now, there's times when you are doing something and you don't even realize it?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
Probably during this interview. I don't know.
Because you're stressed.
The stress level. Yeah.
So you were diagnosed in 7th grade. When did you and your family decide that it was time to go get a diagnosis?
So moving over to the junior high in 7th grade, and like I already talked about that, I guess it was a lot of stress that brought it out. Because I would start to shake my head just uncontrollably, like I was saying no. And so I would just shake it back and forth and back and forth. And I had no idea that why I was doing it or what was happening. And my mom would notice. And one time she took me to the doctor in our hometown. And then they said, well, you know, kids these days, they just shake their head around to move their hair. Or maybe it's her ponytail bothering her. But we'll see what happens. Well, Mom didn't like that answer. So she said, well, I'm setting up a video camera and I'm going to record this and take it to the doctor, because when I was in the doctor's office, I wouldn't do it.
Right.
Same as when I was playing softball at the time. She said that she would watch me and my head would just shake uncontrollably. But as soon as the pitcher would go into her windup, I would freeze. Like my head would go still and I would be able to watch the pitch and do what I needed to do. And so once we got the video of it, she set up a video camera in the other room. I had no idea. And you could just see my head just shaking, shaking, shaking. She asked me afterwards if I even knew. And I was like, no, not really. Or I watched the video and didn't know it was that bad.
Right.
So we took the video to the doctor. He said, yeah, this is something. Let's send it to the neurologist. So they sent us to a neurologist in Austin. And right away, when we popped the video in and showed him, he immediately was like, oh, I know exactly what this is. Let me tell you all about Tourette syndrome. Let me tell you what the symptoms are. And we identified with all of those and said, yeah, exactly. And so he diagnosed me. You have to have vocal and motor tics to be diagnosed. And so my vocal, yeah, at least now you do, from what we've researched, because we've noticed some symptoms in my son now, because things that he was doing over the summer. And so he doesn't have any vocal things at all, but we've seen things in his eyes. And only reason I see it is because I'm, looking for it. I'm used to it. So I will do real quiet vocal things that aren't very loud at all. So I don't even mean saying words out loud. just making noises, or the way that you're breathing, where you can breathe heavier. So those would be my vocal things that happen.
So when you were diagnosed with Tourette's, did you find that a relief to have a name with what was happening, or did you feel like it was another stressor of a label attached?
I didn't feel like it was another label attached. I felt a relief in a sense of, okay, we finally know what this is. Let's treat it. And unfortunately, he said, there's no cure, and we can put you on some medication to try to help with the symptoms, but that's about it. Well, the medication they put me on made me very drowsy and sleepy, to where I would even fall asleep in class. So that wasn't good. And yeah, I even remember your mom, because I would go home with you after school, and your mom would say, she's just not the same person anymore. She's so just out of it. And so we decided to try to wean me off of that after maybe 3 or 4 months of taking it, I guess it might have been. So then I stopped taking it. The symptoms, like I said, they go up and down. Hormones affect them, tiredness and stress and stuff. So they started getting relief, and I didn't need the medication to try to control it. I could kind of control and things like that.
Now, I remember you talking about how sometimes you'd realize you were doing something like moving your neck or doing something like that, and you'd stop it, and you'd have to like hold it and hold it and hold it. And then you would say, like, the next morning or later that night, when you would just release it, it'd just be constant. It would hurt from all you restraining it.
Right.
Is that true? Am I remembering that correctly?
Yeah. Like, think about if you were to like clench your teeth or something in your jaw, like that, after you're holding that for a while, that would really cause some pain in your jaw. Well, that's what I'm doing, but mostly with the muscles in the back of my neck. So trying to not shake my head. And now I don't shake my head. I just tighten those muscles in the back of my neck. So I can feel that after the fact and tell, oh man, this is really sore. This really bothers me. The worst thing that ever happened, I mean, getting the diagnosis was great because, like I said, it brought some relief of, okay, this is what it is. And I was able to tell my friends, because it wasn't something that I could hide all the time. And so I was able to tell my friends, this is what's up, this is what it's called, and this is what's going on. And the worst thing was, one day at lunch, I was having a moment, and this girl looked at me, one of my friends who knew, and said, Amanda, why are you saying no? Nobody asked you a question. And immediately I just turned red, and I was upset, and I was in 7th grade. So it was the worst thing ever. And another of my friends stuck up for me and was like, hey, leave her alone. Like, you know what's going on. And I just remember finishing my lunch really quickly so I could go outside and get away from her.
Did you ever feel like there was something wrong with you because of this? Or was it something you just always just knew was just a part of you?
I always knew it was just a part of me. Like, my mom can even tell you, getting in the car after we got the diagnosis, she said the car shook like crazy because I was holding everything in his office. And then I got in the car and just went crazy in the car. She said the car was literally shaking. And she, as a mother, and now me as a mom, like, I can sympathize with her. She felt like, oh my gosh, something's wrong with my kid. How are we going to handle this? How is she going to react? She's so young and everything. But I remember telling her, like, Mom, he said I can still play sports. He said I can still be good in my education.
I can see that being your response. I can still do stuff. Who cares?
I went that weekend and played a softball tournament and slid into 3rd and broke my leg. I mean, it was just the best weekend of 7th grade. But when I would shake my head, my eyes stay still. So I can still read and drive. I eventually drove, but everything was still able to do. Like, I wasn't physically or mentally impaired. It was just a thing that I was going to have for the rest of my life, things that are going to go on. So
now, obviously, it's diagnosed in junior high for you, and you've got junior high and high school where sometimes kids can be at their meanest. Did you find a lot of kids making comments about it, or were they kind of more understanding?
They were understanding, especially, like, I don't know. I felt very fortunate because I don't remember a lot of people picking on me, and it's totally something that they could have done when I was in 7th grade because the symptoms were very obvious. And like I said, that one time that girl asked me, no one told you a question. Why are you saying no? But that was the only thing that has stuck out in my mind about it. No one ever made fun of me. I mean, I like to educate people on it. And if I'm brave enough and they're willing, I'll ask people sometimes if things I see in them, if they are have you ever been diagnosed with Tourette's? Like there's a guy I work with now where I know him well enough to be able to have the conversation with him and ask him, because I want to know for my son, who's also a boy, and be able to go down that path. So it's really kind of been enlightening to have people so accepting of me with this condition. It's not something that has impaired me in any way.
Now, I'm sure Tourette's works differently for every person. And so is Tourette's something that most naturally grow further and further away from, or is that just how it worked in your case?
I would say, and I'm saying from my research, which isn't, I'm no professional, that it's something that is worse when your hormones are going kind of crazy at an adolescent age.
Right.
And then you go through periods of remission. And that's what I remember the doctor telling me, that you'll go through remission in the sense where it'll be really bad, but then you'll hit a period where everything is really good. And he did, like I've said, talk about where stress or sleep will trigger those things. And so making sure that you stay well rested can help out with those symptoms.
Do you talk with your students about this at all?
Occasionally. It's not something that I bring up habitually or on a schedule. And so there rarely does it happen, but sometimes if given the opportunity, then I'm not afraid to talk about it. But since my symptoms are so not noticeable, I rarely talk about it. Just last week, though, a student said, "Hey, Ms. Threatt, do this." And he was blinking his eyes really fast. And I said, "Oh, I can't do that because I have Tourette's. And if I start, I won't stop." And he just froze and said, "What did you just say?" And so then I had to explain to the class that I have Tourette's syndrome. I got in 7th grade and everything's okay. Like, go Google it. I'm okay. And
so when you found out you had Tourette's, were you ever interested, or did you ever seek for a support group or finding other kids with Tourette's, or was it just something that you were like, this is my life, I'm just going to figure it out?
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely like, this is my life, I'll figure it out. I didn't feel a need to need other people's support, because I had the support of my family so greatly that, but you know how if you go into a nursery and some babies are crying, then one starts, the other start, and the other start, and the other start. So a Tourette's support group is probably a bad idea, because when one is ticking, then the others want to, and then it would just be like everyone going crazy and they're all together. But there have been opportunities where I've been able to talk to students or children younger than me. Even when I was in junior high or high school, there would be students at my mom's school. She was a principal at a private school, and she would say, "Hey, would you mind talking to this kid because he's going through this right now and they're about to get diagnosed." And so it really just gave me a platform to be able to say, "Hey, look, it's going to be okay. Like, there's really nothing wrong. Like, you can still play sports, you can still read your books, you can still make good grades. So don't worry about it." And so I had no problem sharing with other people about overcoming that. It's not a disability that's going to impair you from those things.
Well, and that's why you were someone that I wanted to have come and talk about this, because, for all my memory of this being a part of our lives, I never felt like it was something you were ever like, woe is me, I can't do this stuff, this is the most terrible thing. The worst I ever remember you saying is, like we talked about earlier, I'm just really sore. I was holding it in, or this happened today, or I was doing this today, or things like that. Knowing how well adjusted you became to understanding this about yourself, and now knowing you've got 2 kids, and you mentioned your youngest a little bit, when you think about the possibility of, this is a 2-part question. So part 1, is Tourette's hereditary? And then part 2, when you think about your own children and you noticing a couple little things in one of them, what goes through your head? Like, what do you feel as a mother now also having Tourette's?
So first of all, from my knowledge of what I've researched, I believe that it is hereditary, that you can pass it down. It is a neurological disorder. So I believe so, and which makes me even more able to see symptoms like I've seen in my son. He's in first grade this year. And so over the summer, we noticed some things about him with his eyes. And so he would just nonchalantly move his eyes like up to the corner of his eye sockets and over and over. So before school started, because of that, we, one, set up an appointment with his doctor to be able to talk with her about those symptoms. But two, my husband and I met with his teachers to let them know. We said, look, we just want to let you know we don't have a diagnosis. We don't have any idea if we're going to call it Tourette's syndrome, but I have it. And it's something that we want you to know about because, one, we don't want you to think our son is rolling his eyes at you and being disrespectful because he's not. And so that's one thing. But also, if you notice it or notice any more symptoms, because you're about to spend a lot more time with him than we are because summer is ending. So would you please let us know? Well, once school started and he got on his like regular sleep schedule and we kind of got back in a routine of things, the symptoms went away, like virtually gone. And we only notice them now when he's more tired and sleepy and off of his regular sleep schedule. So like I said, it comes on with tiredness. And so it's been interesting now as a parent to be able to recognize, I'm more apt to recognize it than you would be, or someone other parent who doesn't have it just because of that. But then able to tell his teachers, hey, look for this. Don't call him out for it. But, you know, please like look and let us know if you see anything. So that was been good. But they haven't noticed anything. So that's been good.
So if we've got listeners or viewers on who are thinking their own children may have Tourette's or students that they work with may have Tourette's, what would be your first advice in seeking further information or help?
I would say first ask the kid if they notice it at all, because that's what I've done with my son. Hey, do you notice that you're doing that? And he says no. And so that would be an indicator of this is something that they can't control, that they're doing with outside of their own control. And then see if they, okay, well, if you do know you're doing that, then, you know, cut it out, stop. But if you don't, then let's kind of monitor and see how it goes. And like I said, when I knew someone was watching me, such as my mom with the video on me, and if I knew, then I wouldn't do it as much. But if I didn't, setting up a secret camera or something is not a bad idea, because that's exactly how we got our diagnosis. Because when I went into the doctor office, I was very hesitant and very like controlled with my tics. I could tell that I could control them. But when you pop in the video, that shows all the evidence that you need. From what I've researched for taking my son now, they want symptoms to be in effect for a year before they'll give you a diagnosis. So they want 1 year of motor and vocal tics before you're going to get a diagnosis. But even still, there's no treatment, there's no cure. And so it's really something that you're just going to have to deal with and control as much as you can by getting regular sleep and staying out of the stress bubble.
Good luck. So if there was one thing that you wish more people knew or understood about Tourette's, what would that one thing be? Or one thing you really want people to take away from this conversation?
I would say where I'm working with, the students that I'm working with are the people I have the most, interaction with. And constantly I'm telling them, don't make judgment about a person before you know everything about them. So you don't know their story. You don't know where they're from. You don't know all the background. So before you make a judgment about them, get to know them. And don't say, oh, that person over there is weird or doing weird things, but because you don't know what's going on with them. So find out as much information as you can about someone before jumping to conclusions about them.
I love that. Well, Amanda, I was so thrilled when you said yes, because I was like, I told my wife, I said, I'm going to ask Amanda to come on. And she was like, is she going to say yes? Because, you know, Amanda doesn't do that kind of stuff. I was like, when I asked you, you were like, sure, I'll do it. And I was like, typical Amanda response.
Sure. Yeah.
I've loved watching your journey through this, and just your strength and the way you handle yourself, and the way that you have never had any kind of shame about talking about it, or being vocal for what others are going through with this. And so I really, really appreciate you coming on tonight and sharing a bit of your story.
You bet. Thank you for having me.
And thank you, everybody, for listening or watching another episode of Tell Your Story. I hope that today's conversation has inspired you or encouraged you to get out there and tell your story, because like I tell you every week, every story matters. Have a great night, everyone.